transcending mediocrity in our profession. What is going on, everyone? Thanks for coming to the Dr. Krol PT and Fitness Podcast. This is episode 30, and we're going to be talking about a training paradigm today. We're going to be talking about the pyramid of training and what that really means and why most of you aren't doing the things that you need to do. Most of you aren't allocating your resources appropriately when it comes to training for a skill, regardless of what it is. It could be football, racquetball, soccer, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, dance, running. It doesn't matter what it is. An overwhelming majority of people make the same mistakes by focusing completely on the wrong part of this pyramid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring this pyramid up on the screen. You'll see this pyramid come up here, and what we see is a nice, smooth, built pyramid with a nice, strong base. And at the base of that pyramid is health. You see health at the base of the pyramid. You see movement stacked on top of that. You see athleticism stacked on top of that. And on top of that, finally, at the top of the pyramid is skill. And skill is where we spend most of our time. We want to be on the mat 6 days a week rolling. We want to be running 70 miles a week. We want to be on the court shooting thousands of free throws and working on our dribbling and our handles. But we don't spend as much time on the rest of the pyramid. Let's talk about what the rest of the pyramid really means, starting at the bottom. So let's define these terms. Health. Health is your anatomy and your physiology working the way they're supposed to, and you doing the things that are going to make that anatomy and physiology work the way they're going to work. Now again, this is not a football player's health profile. This is not a soccer player or a jiu-jitsu player's health profile. This is a human being's health profile. We're not even remotely concerned about their athleticism or their skill at this point. We're simply looking at their health. Are they getting proper hydration? Is their nutrition good? Are they sleeping enough every night? How are their joints? How are their muscles? How are their bones? How's their internal health? Blood pressure, blood levels if you're taking blood tests and going that far. How are your lungs operating? Your basic anatomy and physiology and the things that you do to maintain that anatomy and physiology. How's your hygiene? All of those things are health behaviors. If you are, let's take it up to a skill level, if you have a fight coming up, if you are a boxer, a martial artist, and you have a fight coming up, you're probably not spending all night out drinking and getting 2 hours of sleep. Why? Because that's a bad health behavior. Right before a competition, you wouldn't do that. So why do you do it all throughout training and all throughout life? If you want to be a high-level athlete or even a good competing athlete, your health is first. Your health is at the base of the pyramid. We'll talk about that more in a little bit. Moving up the pyramid, stacked on top of health in this optimal pyramid that we have here, is movement. So what is movement? It's not an easy question to answer, but movement is basically your ability to move all your joints and move them in coordination with one another to make things happen. So if we look at how much you can squat, that really becomes moot if you can't squat in the first place. If you can't move well enough to actually do a proper squat, then it's not going to get better when we load it. It's not going to get better when we fatigue it. We need to be able to move well enough first. I'm going to argue that if your ankles do not move the way they're supposed to, if your knees do not move the way they're supposed to, your hips, your spine, then your running pace, your top pace that you can hit genetically is going to go down because your movement quality isn't good enough. If we're showing you techniques in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and you simply can't get your limbs into those positions effectively, then your ability to do those positions and those movements is going to decrease because you simply don't have the movement profile to do this. We're not even talking about how good of an athlete you are at this point. We're basically talking about how well you can move. If you don't move well enough to run, you're probably not going to be a very good runner. If your shoulder mobility is screwed up, if your thoracic mobility is screwed up, if your breathing patterns are screwed up, your powerlifting is probably not going to be where you want it to be. So all these things stack on top of movement. If you don't move well, you don't move up to the next level of the pyramid well, which is athleticism. Athleticism is when we start stacking quantity and repetitions and pace. It's when we stack capacity on top of our movement. So we look at movement, how well do you move? Now, how fast can you run? How far can you run without stopping? How much can you squat? How many push-ups can you do? What's your heaviest Turkish get up? What can you do with a battle rope or medicine ball? Can you do a standing twist? Can you control a Pallof press well? These are all things that stack capacity on top of it. What type of weight can you move around? What type of energy can you produce? How fast can you go? This is athleticism, and athleticism is really important because we've all been in a situation, if we've played sports at all or competed at any level, we've always run into the individual that is simply just a bigger, stronger, faster athlete than us. We're better than they are, skill-wise, but it doesn't matter because they can get through what we do, they can just overpower us, they can outrun us, they can do whatever they want physically to us because we can't stop them. There's an athletic difference between the two individuals. So athleticism is important. But again, if you're not sleeping well, if you're not hydrated well, if your nutrition is bad, then your athletic ability is going to go down. Your peak athletic ability is going to go down. You still may be a phenomenal athlete, and there can be pyramids that are skewed, but for the overwhelming majority of us, all that stuff stacks into your athleticism. If you don't move well, if your spine doesn't move well, if your shoulders don't move well, you're going to be limited in your athletic ability. These things just stack on top of each other. Now we finally get to the part where people want to focus the most, and that is skill. People want to do skill. Skill is fun. Skill is addicting for the most part. People love doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or dancing or running or playing racquetball or playing football or basketball. We love to focus on the skill. And a lot of people will say, they'll go on Instagram, 6 days a week on the mat, getting that grind on, putting in the reps, putting in the work, and they focus so much on skill that they don't really concentrate on the rest of the pyramid. So that's what the pyramid is supposed to look like for the most part, in a nice, well-balanced pyramid. But here's where our allocation of resources goes. It's almost all skill, some athleticism, because most people can make the connection between good athleticism and good skill. But boy, it really drops off when you go into movement and health. People do all sorts of bad health behaviors, and they don't sleep well, and they don't hydrate well, and they don't do the things they're supposed to be doing day in and day out, moment in and moment out, to concentrate on their health, concentrate on their movement. They concentrate mostly on skill. They will spend 6 days a week on the mat. They will not miss a day. They will not give up a day to do any of the other things. They're not even concerned about it until something goes wrong. They blow out their ankle, they hurt their back, they hurt their shoulder, and now their health and their movement is so critically limited that they cannot even participate at that point. Then they'll go seek help, and then they'll wonder why, how did this happen? How did I get to this point? I don't even understand what happened. I must have just had a freak injury. The reality is you do not go from completely healthy to injured just like that in an overwhelming majority of cases. It's usually a breakdown of time, over time, and then you will go. The shoulder will go, the back will go, the knee will go, the ankle will go, something will happen. So people usually don't concentrate on their health and their movement until it's critically damaged to the point where they can't participate. So most of us, an overwhelming majority, are not the Tom Brady's and the Tony Gonzalez's of the world, Novak Djokovic has a sports psychologist and a massage therapist come with him to his major tournaments. Tom Brady travels with a physical therapist, a very high-end physical therapist. That takes a lot of resources that the average recreational or amateur athlete does not have. And I would never expect them to allocate that financial burden to just, hey, I like to compete in a jiu-jitsu tournament maybe once a year, or I like to go to open mat, or I want to belt up faster. I would never say hire a physical therapist and have them come with you to every event. Again, that's simply not a reasonable financial burden for the recreational or amateur athlete. But you can take things from the high-end professionals in terms of how they're allocating resources, what they're doing to make their skill level better. The best performers in the world, the people who have longevity. They're not just freak athletes that come in, dominate a sport for a year or 2 or 3, and then they fizzle out. I'm talking to people who have long-standing success, long-standing ability. They constantly get better. They're constantly evolving. They do certain things that we can take tips from. Tom Brady is a great example because he has a year-long nutrition plan. Here's what I eat during the early off season. Here's what I eat during mid-off season. Here's what I eat during training camp. Here's how I eat during the season. Here's how I eat during the playoffs. Here's how I handle all this stuff at this point in time of the year. And what he's doing there is he's maintaining the health base of his pyramid, and he's maintaining it very well. One of the reasons, on top of just being genetically gifted, that he's able to continue to play at a very high level at the age he's playing at. When you see certain performers, Jaromir Jagr is another one who's been playing professional hockey well into his 40s. There are certain things that he does to take care of his health, on top of being, again, genetically gifted, but he's doing the things to maintain those genetic gifts that he has. He used to run the stairs at the arenas every night. When he would go to an arena, he'd run the stairs. Now, that may be overdosing to some degree, but he was working on his conditioning, he was working on his athleticism, not just staying on the ice working on stick handling. He knew, I have enough skill, I'm going to work on getting it better, but I need to be a great athlete as well, and I need to take care of my body long term. These are things that the great athletes do. Unfortunately, the recreational and the amateur athlete tend not to think this way. They tend to think, more repetitions, I get better. More repetitions, I get better. It's the SAID principle, specific adaptations to impose demands. If I impose more demand, I get better. I make an adaptation. And we kind of like these things. We like these stories of Kobe Bryant shooting 1,000 baskets before he would leave the court, just repetitions. We like the idea of people doing things ad nauseum to make themselves better and not really, worried about the health. We like, hey, if I do more skill, I'm going to get better. And people don't really do that. They don't focus on their health, and they certainly don't focus on their movement, which is the next part up. One of the examples I use all the time is John Cena. John Cena makes a career with his physique, whether it's in professional wrestling, WWE type stuff, or in movies. His physique gets him roles. His physique is a part of his entire caricature. Same with like a Vin Diesel or a Dave Bautista. The physique is part of what they do. Sylvester Stallone is very similar to that, Arnold Schwarzenegger over time. What you have is John Cena is going to say, okay, when I exercise, when I weight lift to bodybuild to keep this physique that I am essentially getting paid for, I do an hour of warm-up. John Cena dedicates an hour of time to warm up because he knows if I make sure my movement is tight, my movement is sharp, my risk of injury goes way down, and my ability to lift more and to lift well both go up. I can be a better athlete if I have a good movement profile. And if I take the time every day to work on that movement profile, I can maintain the power, the strength, and the physique that he wants because of all that stuff. This is incredibly important because, again, I'm not saying that everybody should spend an hour of time doing a warm-up or an hour of time doing a mobility unit every day, but what you should be doing is at least focusing on it. This is what makes John Cena millions and millions of dollars. He's going to dedicate a ton of time into this realm. If you are a recreational athlete, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or whatever, it doesn't matter, dance, you should be working on your basic mobility for at least some point in time. If you want to get better, you should be working on your mobility. There's a lot of people out there that are not belting as fast as they should be, that are not improving as well as they should be, simply because they don't move very well. They don't spend a lot of time doing the movement, so they're constantly fighting the techniques. They're constantly fighting this. And because they're constantly fighting it, their body is just rejecting the technique. Their body is just rejecting the instruction. They're learning how to do it inappropriately. They're compensating. They're doing things that they shouldn't be doing to try to get the technique as right as they can, instead of saying, okay, the limitation in my technique is not my instructor. It's not my ability to understand it. It's my body's inability to actually do it. So is it just something that is athletically out of my realm? This is a super advanced technique, super highly athletic, and only the greatest athletes in the world can do it? Or is this a early blue belt technique, a late white belt technique, and I just don't have the mobility to do this? What is going on? Work your way back, and overwhelmingly what you'll find is that there's a mobility or an athleticism problem that is really limiting you from advancing and moving and learning as fast as you want to be doing it. So really you should be taking the time to work on the health and mobility thing. Work on your skill. But absolutely, my belief is that if you take 99.9% of us, and again, that is recreational athletes, that is amateur athletes, those are people who compete, with some frequency, those are amateur athletes. Recreational are people who may compete in a house event, an open mat, or they may compete in a tournament that they'll drive to, but they're not competing to advance and to, ever go pro. That's not their intention. So those I consider recreational athletes. They should be taking the time to work on that base of that pyramid. And that's where a lot of people screw it up. They only have so many hours in a day. They're usually working 40+ hour a week. They usually have families. So they're fitting in on the rest of their time, their jiu-jitsu or their dance or their basketball, football, racquetball. It doesn't matter what golf. It doesn't matter. It's all the same. That's an athletic event. They're trying to fit in all that skill because they feel that the skill will make them better, when in fact they should be spending quite a bit of time working on their health, working on their mobility, working on their athleticism. And what you will find is that the skill gets better because of it. You have to till the soil before you plant your seeds, or you'll never get anything to grow. All right, if you have a great instructor, they may have great seeds to give you, but if you just throw them on the ground with no soil, nothing's ever going to grow. So you want to take the time to move well. You want to take the time to work on your health. Put yourself in the best possible position so that when you find great instruction, someone that can help you get better at your skill, you have the platform to actually get better. All right? Don't just focus on skill, focus on your health, focus on your mobility, your movement, focus on your athleticism, and I promise you, you will belt faster. And whether it's jiu-jitsu, you will do better in a ring, you will perform better in dance, you will perform better on the court or on the field or on the golf course. Doesn't matter where it is. If you do the things at the base of the pyramid to make yourself move and feel better, you will perform better. This is Dr. Lee Krol signing off for episode 30. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, if you made it this far, you know what to do. There's a like button down there. You want to hit that. There's a share button down there. You want to hit that. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, if you just sort of came about this by happenstance, subscribe to the channel. You'll get all the updates whenever I post new content. This is episode 30. I'm probably going to do a little 30 for 30 next and go through what I talked about on all my previous 30 episodes. Hope you enjoy it. Hit me with a thumbs up if you can. Talk to you later.